This is an easy question to ask, and there's no need to raise your hand because I know the response would be 100%. But I'm going to put it out there anyway. How many of you know complicated people? Or have known complicated people? Maybe everything's cool in your life right now. These are individuals that sometimes at first it's like, that guy's just a jerk or she's just difficult. But then you get to know them better and you see some good things about them. And really you see how, yeah, they're difficult, but they're shooting themselves in the foot. They don't have to be. They can be better in what they are doing. And you go from just thinking they're just kind of bad folks to they're just complicated. They're just complicated. For those of us who grew up with Sunday school and Vacation Bible School, if we heard about Saul, it's generally as a villain, as the bad guy. For those who have been around maybe the edges of Sunday school, Vacation Bible School, church camps, things like that, if you've heard anything about Saul, it's either A, he's just bad, he's one of those bad guys, or you hear about him as a supporting character in the story of David and Goliath. I can remember first hearing about Saul, and it was in Sunday school that we were really talking about David. We made, and this really dates it, they had cut out a little musical lyre out of construction paper. And with the hole punchers had made holes, and we took yarn and would weave it through and would tie it. I was very disappointed I could not play it. It made no music. But the point was, David and the lyre, he would play the lyre, that's like a harp, and that music would soothe King Saul, who was very disturbed. At best, we knew that Saul was easily disturbed. We were already getting that hint that Saul was a bad guy. Saul, at this point, David is actually the good guy. He calms Saul. Saul later goes after David, and there's some interesting stories that follow in that. So I hear about Saul and David, and Saul is just troubled, to Saul versus David, and he is bad. Even in the story of David and Goliath, like I said, Saul's kind of a neutral, maybe even positive, but he is a supporting character there. Saul is either shown as somebody who's troubled, as a bad guy, or simply a supporting character. Is he the bad guy, the villain? Is he simply misunderstood? Or is he a tragic fallen hero? He's, like I said, he's that person. He could have been a contender. In the end, he could have done well, but in the end, he's just a complicated character. Who is Saul? How does the good news of Jesus Christ come into play, and what does that mean for us? Well, first, who is Saul, and how did he become king? Well, he starts out really well. He's in the tribe of Benjamin, and in Scripture, we have his family tree back 6 generations. It goes back to his great-great-great-grandfather. In terms of those listed names, be grateful I didn't ask you to read that. Chapter 9, verse 1. We know that his father is wealthy. In verse 2 it says, Saul is a choice and a handsome man. He stood a head taller than other men. So he's tall. He's handsome. He's rich. He's got a pedigree. I bet he had no problem getting a date for the prom. I'm sure he was voted most likely to succeed in his high school class, in part because he was already 100 meters ahead of everybody else. Now, I shared the story earlier of kind of how he was called, how that call came upon him. And that good point I said is that God calls us when we're in the middle of doing our jobs. God can call us in very unlikely circumstances. It's interesting, too, in the story, he's told, those 3 things will happen. You'll meet a man who will tell you where the donkeys are. These people will give you food. And you'll meet a group of prophets, and you'll prophesy. And it all comes to pass. He's told this, his heart has changed, and he is open to doing it again. Now it's interesting in what follows when they do a big public ceremony. This is something that follows, and Samuel has a group there, and he says, okay, y'all want a king, you're going to have a king, and we're going to do it by lots. The Lord will direct the lots, and by process of elimination. It comes up to the tribe of Benjamin. It comes up to their clan, their subgroup within the tribe. It comes up to the family of Kish. That's Saul's daddy. And so it's kind of magic point, and it's the son. Okay, yes. And now where is it? At that point, he is hiding among the animals. He's almost trying to avoid the actual call. It's a reminder to us that God calls. Do not be afraid when he calls. Go forward. A little bit later, he overhears some supporters, and then he hears some detractors. The basic, I can't believe that guy got to be king. The scripture says he kept silent. He's got some brains too. At this point, he's thinking things through. No need stirring up trouble. What follows, we have a great victory and a celebration of the ongoing battles that they've got. They've got a victory. They've got a celebration, and he rules for a period of time. Follows along, chapter 12, Samuel steps back a bit, takes on more the role of senior statesman. Out of semi-retirement, really would be a way of describing it. The image of basically takes on a new role, and he's able to step back. But then we have a series of problems that come up. In chapter 13, they're getting ready, before they go into battle, they're supposed to make an offering. And got to wait till Samuel comes here. And Samuel, for whatever reason, is late. Several days pass, and the people start to scatter. And Samuel gets scared, so he just goes ahead and does it anyway. And Samuel shows up and says, "You were supposed to wait for me." Saul is afraid of the people. And then in chapter 14, we see him kind of going off half-cocked. Originally, we see him being very smart, keeping silent. In the middle of a battle, and he just says, "Hey, anybody who eats before this battle is won dies." Not realizing that his son, Jonathan, had not heard about that promise, so he got a bite to eat. And the battle saying, "Well, I guess you got to kill him." And the people saying, No. This is later on. They win a victory. No, we're not going to let that happen. And then we have our section, now we're getting to what was read today, where Saul is half-hearted. He's not completely committed. The Lord regrets ever calling him as king. They've gone into battle against a group, and now this is harsh, but the point was everything must be destroyed. That's what I told you to do. And then Samuel meets them and said, everything's supposed to be destroyed. What's that I'm hearing? Some sheep bleating? And he said, we saved the best. We're going to make a sacrifice to the Lord. Now, the debate here. Was that really the plan? Or, Samuel's caught us, so now we're going to say, it was a sacrifice. It was a sacrifice. Imagine your police mind working in that direction. Maybe that was the situation. That's why the best of the best was really kept. So, was it for us really to be sacrificed, or was it, we'll destroy the rest and keep the best? It's partial obedience. And even in the midst of that, Saul is blaming others. He doesn't just say, "Look, I screwed up. Forgive me." He blames others. In the end, David will be chosen by God first in a very private ceremony, and we'll look at some of that next week. And then there is the episode with David and Goliath. And then David is winning battles, and he becomes very popular with the people. David is playing the music, it's calming Saul. But then he hears them praising, Saul hears the people praising David more than him. And then David is out of favor, and David must flee, and Saul pursues David. It's an ongoing drama of several chapters. At this point, we now see Saul defined by his failures. And he's defined by people around him. Jonathan, his son's a good guy. Saul is bad. David, the guy who was helping out at the court of the king, he's great. Saul's the bad guy. He is defined by his relationships to other people, not by his own actions. And finally, we see the fall. There is a battle. This is at the end of 1 Samuel, and there's some record at the beginning of 2 Samuel. He's actually preparing for battle. This is chapter 28. And he goes to a witch, the witch of Endor. He's not supposed to do that. He needs help. Conjure up Samuel. And she does. The Lord permits it for whatever reason. The Lord has permitted it. And so she's freaking out because, oh my gosh, it really is Samuel. And Samuel's saying, why have you done this? It's over for you, don't you realize it? And then in chapter 31, he dies in battle by his own hand. He sees what is happening. And he takes his own life. In the end, Saul has lost his family, his respect, his kingdom. He feels abandoned. I'm not going to say he was abandoned. He had been removed as king, but I'm not saying God abandoned him, okay? But he felt abandoned. And he took his own life. This stands as a sad testimony. Now, I'm feeling a little bit like Walmart at this moment. I say that because even though Halloween is the next big thing and the Halloween items are out there, if you look, you'll find Christmas. It starts. They're already getting discreetly putting those things aside. And so I felt like that Walmart to bring up a Christmas story, and this particular one is a Christmas Carol, but this is the image that came to my mind. If you've ever seen it as a play, as a movie, read the book, you know it towards the beginning, there's the appearance of Bob Marley. And that was the ghost who visits Ebenezer Scrooge. Marley had worked with Scrooge, had been a business associate, and now he carries change around with him, kind of as a punishment, and must wander the earth. He is not at peace. But he says, I'm here to warn you. You've got a chance. It's too late for me, but you've got a chance. In some respects, I look now at the life of Saul, and I see that as a tragic life. It had so much potential. In the end, he lost it all. In the end, Saul's life serves as a cautionary warning tale. And looking at what got him in trouble, what led him astray, comes to three questions. What do you fear? What do we fear? What holds us back? And on what do we build our lives? First, what do you fear? Or what do we fear? In fact, a brother-in-law of mine, that was one of his big kind of discerning questions. If you're not wanting to do something, what is it? What are you fearing? What is the fear factor in this? I think it could even be, the fear is legitimate, don't do it. So it's not saying go ahead and do it, but start asking yourself that. Another person says, when it comes to making changes, do you honor your vision for your life or do you honor your fear? What is it? Samuel feared. He feared the people. He feared his position. He chose to look at his fear and not to focus on the object of his faith.